To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
School City Lighting mission. School City Lighting, in partnership with our community, empowers students to pursue high-quality, personalized educational pathways and grow as responsible, lifelong learners who respect and value differences. Call to order.
TJ Toth.
Here.
Chris Davenport.
Here.
Betty Herbst. Here. Tom Miller.
Here.
Rena Mendez. Here.
Audience comments, I have none at this moment. Go over board agenda, so we'll move on. Administrators report, superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Toth. First and foremost, I just want to thank all of the staff to a great start of the year. A lot of our leaders are in the audience here now. Also, our teacher union president is here, Mr. Hunter. I think we've had a great start to the school year, a lot of excitement around the community, so very proud about that. I also want to thank our students. They came in with a great attitude this school year. They've been doing a great job following the expectations, and we kind of keep raising the bar higher and higher every day. And they keep following it and meeting that expectation. So just very proud of the staff and the students. I also have great news for Ms. Pearson. Ms. Pearson, I'm going to put you on the spot. You want to come up and talk about the IREAD really quick? Just give it just a 2-second. Come on. We can officially make the announcement now.
Okay, I don't have to go up there though.
Yeah, no, you can just say
Okay, no, so we finally got our IREAD scores officially released because you never know with the state. There's some caveat we missed, but so we were 96.6%, so we were very excited. So we only had, like truly when you say it's like takes a village, because Liz knows like all of our meetings, working like every support person possible that could work with the student was working with them, and Liz leading the charge. So we are just really proud of the kids. Parents, I mean, so invested in it, because I had parents crying when I called them after summer school, like to tell them their child passed, and they were so excited. And also for the ones that were like 1 point from passing, that was hard, and just reminding them, you know, their child tried their best, but just the fact that the parents were invested, the kids were so invested and take it, you know, so seriously, and all of the great staff. So we were very proud of that and excited.
We're going to do a school celebration?
Yes, we're not sure what that'll look like yet, but we are very excited, so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I want to have Liz and Aaron, you guys want to mention just the early release about the Wednesdays being able to go out in the community and work from. Come on, Aaron. I just think it's a great idea, and I'm really excited about it. I want Aaron to be able to share kind of the thought process behind it.
Yes, so we have had opportunities where we have the teachers work together to complete tasks in-house. And this year, the idea was to incorporate some community visits. So going to local areas to be able to sit and be patrons with a community establishment and have their school meetings. So just I know we had a little bit of a journey in looking for some possible.
Yeah, we're going to give the staff members locations around town that they can meet, indoor, outdoor, get an ice cream, get a coffee, and then you'll see them in the community with their laptops and having conversations about learning.
And there will be an approved list of places.
Yeah,
There's
We love every
some other
establishment.
establishments. We're not going to be
We love every
visiting those. Thank you, Aaron, so much. We're just excited about our staff going out and being seen and working inside some of these local businesses and supporting them. And then, in return, they'll be supporting us back as we move forward as one. So very excited about that. Also, just want to thank the athletic department, our athletic director, and our students that went out last Saturday. They went out to help, I think we had about 10 or 12 families that needed help because of that flooding that took place on August 18th. So just very proud about that. I am going to buy a pizza on Tuesday, kind of a little reward for their efforts. So thank you to that. And then also, all the families out there, we do have family passes. Please contact the athletic department. You can go to the website to purchase it. And then on Friday, September 5th, 2025, at our home football game, we are going to be acknowledging Whiting football team from 2015 that made it to the state championship. So that again is going to be on September 5th here at home. We're going to be acknowledging that group of football players, have them come back and kind of celebrate them. All right, and that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Financial report?
All right, once again, Eric Sender, Sender Development Municipal Advisors. For tonight's financial reports, I want to just go over the July financials briefly and then give you an update on the 2026 budget timeline. So in your July financial report, some highlights, the total cash fund balances at the end of July was $13,254,203.95. Of that, approximately $3,809,000 was held in the education fund and $1,601,000 in the operations fund. In terms of spending budget versus actual, looking at the 2025 budget, July monthly spending in education and operations was slightly below the monthly budget allocation, and the same is true for the year-to-date budget results, looking just slightly below the approved budget. That's a good thing. However, the total spending does outpace the total revenue receipts in both of those funds, and that's a point that will be driven home in the presentation to be given by Policy Analytics here shortly. I encourage you to take a close look at that and the reality of the forward-looking financial situation of the district. Next, an update on the 2026 budget process. So we've been working diligently on putting together a realistic budget plan for the 2026 year. The budget is adopted on a calendar year basis. We're working with departments, gathering detailed information on our capital needs for next year, bus replacement plans, and et cetera. So we'll be presenting a solid draft of this budget at our workshop scheduled for September 4th. Look forward to seeing you there. And then after that, the public hearing for the budget will be held here at next month's board meeting, September 22nd. And that will be, there's a notice that goes out on Indiana Gateway about the budget public hearing. There's also a requirement for an advertisement in the newspaper for the capital improvement plan and bus replacement plans, which will also be having their own public hearing on the same date. So after that, the formal adoption for the budget will be October 27th. And that's how we're looking so far on that process. That's all I have for tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have a presentation of our financial status with Policy Analytics.
April, you want to come up? Thank you for coming here.
Just left the room to put it up
Oh.
on the screen.
Of course, it's gonna show. Where'd he go? Here he is.
Sorry, just double checking the internet.
Oh, shoot.
Not a problem, get you over.
Perfect. Okay, well, my name's April Fennerling, and I'm from Policy Analytics, and I have been with Policy Analytics since July. Prior to that, I was the Chief Financial Officer for Warsaw Community Schools. I didn't see your face. And so I was the Chief Financial Officer for 8 years, total 11 years at Warsaw. I love school finance. It is the most, it's the only thing that, let's just say, the only thing that stays the same is change. So it's almost a little job security, keeping track of all the change and keeping up with all, you've got to learn to pivot in school finance. So I came to Policy Analytics to help my colleagues around the state because there's so many changes this year and it makes school finance look so different. And it's not just a 1-year impact or 2-year impact. This is something that's going to take place over about 6 years until we get a new base of our tax-based system for. So let's take a look here. We're going to talk about the tax rate, tax levies, and we'll touch really quickly on a taxpayer impact slide. So first of all, the foundation of your debt service and operations fund, because they're rate-based funds, and most districts across the state have been used to managing to a rate-based plan, because assessed values have been continuing to grow. So if you kept the same rate, you could get more revenue, or if you decreased your rate, you could get the exact same revenue. But now, with Senate Enrolled Act 1, these changes, it's kind of a calculation of, there's gross assessed value, they create more deductions, so it drives down the net assessed value. So we're seeing trending on net assessed value going down, and when that happens, to generate just the exact same revenue that you would have this year, you would have to increase the tax rate. So a lot of districts are focusing on managing to a levy instead of a rate-based system. So we're going to take a look at two scenarios and what that looks like with the net assessed values being driven down. But I'm going to talk first about the changes. So what changes did Senate Enrolled Act 1 do for us? So they are going to be phasing out the standard deduction. The standard deduction at $48,000 as your home value grew became a lesser of a percentage. So they're like, okay, let's make this more of a percentage-based system because it's a market-based system for gross assessed value, and market-based system, home values continue to grow. So they're phasing out the standard deduction until 2031, and they're increasing the supplemental deduction. So essentially by 2031, your home's value will be taxed on 1/3%, or 33%, 1/3. Okay, so they're making those changes, so every year's gonna look different until we get to that new base at 2031. The next thing they created is a credit, and we're gonna end up calling this an additional circuit breaker, because it is revenue that the district would have received prior to this Senate Enrolled Act 1 creating this new credit for homeowners, for homesteads. There are additional, I'm really just going to talk on the homesteads today, because those are more of, there's a wider base of those, but there are additional deductions for 65 plus veterans, and as you can see, the different categories there. So there's additional deductions, and this is, we at Policy Analytics, we run it on the parcel level data, so we can dive in and say, okay, what is the deduction on this homestead? And then we pull all of that into our calculations, and we'll talk about what that impact looks like. But this homestead credit is 10% or a max of $300 for the tax liability. So just simple math, simple calculation. Let's just say my net assessed value on my home is $200,000. My 1% tax cap is $2,000. Then add a 10% credit, so now my liability goes from $2,000 to $1,800. So essentially, that $200 is not received by municipalities, schools, into the bucket of property tax dollars. So we're calling that an additional circuit breaker loss. And we'll talk about it more coming up. The next one they did, they are increasing some of the 2% categories, so the 2% tax cap category. You'll see residential that do not have the homestead deduction, or long-term care, or agriculture. So they're increasing deductions there, and they're changing the ag-based rate system from 8% to 9%. So creating more deductions. The next thing they're doing to the business personal property tax. So this has two pieces to it. So business personal property, prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, any piece of equipment or furniture or machinery, anything under $80,000 was tax exempt. So if I'm a business owner, I file my taxes, do my deductions, all my paperwork, anything under $80,000, tax exempt. Well, now they've increased it to $2 million. So our report can show, we're going to pull in the difference between the $2 million and $80,000, which you see there's plenty pulled in with that. So we can pull that in. What we don't know, so essentially anything $2 million and below is tax exempt. The second piece to the business personal property tax changes, they have taken the value floor, and a piece of equipment prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1 would follow the depreciation schedule to 30%. It would stay at 30% of its value to be taxed on. Now, it will follow the depreciation schedule. Any new piece of equipment or newly purchased piece of equipment in 2025 and beyond can follow the depreciation schedule down to $0. So what we don't have in our calculation, because we don't know what they'll do, and it'll be very difficult to measure, because if I had a crystal ball and could see what they would do, it'd be fantastic. But if a business gets creative, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna sell this equipment that I have and buy new, because I can follow the depreciation schedule and have a zero value for it, so I'm not paying taxes on it. Or how do I create an LLC and somehow purchase my old equipment, so now I can get them down to a value floor of zero. So businesses are gonna get creative. If you're a business owner, and you have property over $2 million, you're gonna get creative so you can pay less taxes. So that's gonna be something to keep an eye on for districts across the state, because it is something to factor over, many years. And finally, this is not a change to the net assessed value. This is just for controlled projects for school districts. So prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, anything over 80 cents, any district with a debt rate over 80 cents went directly to referendum if they wanted to do a project. Well, they decreased that from 80 cents to 70 cents for if you needed a project, and if you were over 70 cents now, you automatically have to go to ballot. And so we've been running this report for a lot of districts. You guys are super low, so we'll show you, you're not even gonna be close to that 70 cent threshold at all. But there's a lot of districts that were right at either 79.99, and they could, get their projects in without having to go to referendum. Well, now taking it down to 70 cents, it kind of throws a lot of districts' plans, capital projects plans into a different path. So, all right, what does it look like for Whiting here? So this is just a net assessed value composition from 2025, 26, and 2031. So we just like to show this to say, okay, in about 6 years, what's gonna be different? So as you can see, the yellow, which is the personal property tax, is your largest part of your net assessed value, and you can see that climbs about 3%. Your residential decreases about 3%. Industrial stays about the same, and same with apartments and commercial. So not much change to your net assessed value. But if you're looking at this, just think these are not the exact same size. So 2025 is actually a bigger high than 2031. So the tax burden shift, what does it look like from 2025 to 2031, looking at your tax burden shift? So you'll see that personal goes up about, or goes down about 11%. Residential stays about the same. Industrial is the same. Commercial and apartment. So not too big a swing on that tax burden shift. But let's take a look at what the net assessed value looks like. So I've said in the beginning, it's just gross assessed value, additional deductions being created. That's what drives down that net assessed value. So the green line is the gross assessed value. Blue is what would have been prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1. And the orange is post-Senate Enrolled Act 1. So really, if you're looking at the net assessed value, you guys, it's down a little bit, but it's more of kind of a flat line instead of curved like we've been seeing in a lot of districts. So, but with that, it's still declining, so it is still going to have an effect on your tax rate and your levies, and then additionally your circuit breaker as we look at here. So you'll see that jump in 33, 34, there's TIF rolling off, so that you capture that into the net assessed value. So that's what that big jump is there. We do have the little markers in there. 2027 is when that business personal property tax takes effect, and so you'll see that gross assessed value. Not a huge growth from 26 to 27. We do have a little marker in there for 2026 because net assessed values or certified assessed values have been released. And we have an average 2 to 4% in our projections, which is the normal growth that should be happening, but we've been having a few years of abnormal growth, and we've seen a few abnormal certified assessed values across the state, but that's because they're resetting the commercial and industrial tax charts. And so if it comes in a little bit higher than we projected for 2026, that may be the anomaly. And what that would do is potentially just bump up 26, but then you will see that decrease or slight steady path and the net assessed value going forward there. So those are just some little asterisks to think about in that slide. So I said we would talk about two scenarios and what the net assessed value driving down looks like if you're managing to a rate or a levy scenario. So the top line is managing to the 2025 levy. So your 2025 levy was just over $1.3 million. Prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, due to net assessed values climbing, you can see that first line that says pre-SB 1, the tax rate would have been able to decrease to get that exact same amount of levy. Well, now you can see post-Senate Enrolled Act 1 how the rate has to climb to get that same levy. Not too much of a steep increase, but you see it does have to climb to get that same exact rate, or levy. But you're looking at levies staying the same, that's revenues staying the same. When expenditures, we all know expenditures are not going to be staying the same. Everybody wants paid more, utilities are gonna be more, I know gas is gonna be more. Expenditures go up every year. You can guarantee a 2 to 5% increase every year. So looking at that, just to get the exact same levies, what it looks like to the rate. On the bottom scenario, if you used the 2025 rate at 2268, you received a 1.3 million. Prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, you could see that if you carried that rate, 2268, and this is just your debt service rate, you could see the levies increasing year after year. So what does that look like? What would the tax rate now, post-Senate Enrolled Act 1, have to look like to generate those exact same revenues, those increasing revenues each year? You can see the tax rate by, where does it peak at? 2030 at 3059. No, I'm sorry, 2032 at 3143. So just giving you a visual of to increase your levy prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, what it would have been. What does that look like to the tax rate now as the net assessed value is driving down? And this is let's skip to the next one. This is just the same visual, this is a visual to the numbers that we just saw. So those of you that like to see line charts, this is a great thing to be like, okay, the dotted line is what would have happened to the rate prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1, and the red line is the levy scenario, the teal line is the rate scenario. What would have happened to that levy, the rate, prior to Senate Enrolled Act 1? So as you can see, prior, it would have stayed the same or decreased, and then now what happens to the tax rate? But we are seeing, and I'm going to go back to the total tax rate. Total tax rates across the state are going up 30 to 60 cents. So if you follow the rate scenario, you can see what the total tax rate would increase to, or the levy scenario come 2031. And again, when you have a bunch of TIF roll-off in 2033, so the impact is in 2034, you capture more net assessed value. When your net assessed value goes up, that rate goes down. So that's what that flip in 2034 is. Okay, yeah.
Could you just explain, so when you talk about levy, you talk about rate. What were you talking about? Could you just kind of break that down, what that means?
So,
You know, like when you talk 2025 levy,
Yeah.
and then 2025 rate, what are they? You know what I mean, like, so people can understand what you're referring to.
okay, so when you're looking at your revenue calculation for your debt service and your operations fund, when we go back to, this right here. So when we're talking assessed value, it's assessed value times your rate gets your levy or revenue. So this, as the assessed value is moved up and down, the rate moves up and down, and the revenue. It all impacts each other. So if that assessed value is moving to get the same revenue, your rate's gonna have to increase if that assessed value is going down. So is that kind of? where you're
Yeah, I just
going
wanted you to point that
Okay,
out.
all right, perfect. So anytime, you're talking your debt service rate, your operations rate, they are funds that are based on property tax revenue. So there's always this calculation when you're talking your debt service or your operations, and then additionally, potentially rough rental rates.
If I understand correctly, the whole intent of Senate Enrolled Act Fund is to create a tax break for property, correct?
Correct.
And
So.
that's why we're seeing.
Yes.
So this is, like, the houses are all the same.
Yep.
But the state of Indiana is trying to create
Deductions.
we're creating a lower assessed value for everybody.
They're creating a lower net assessed value. The gross assessed value, because I'm a homeowner, I want my property tax, or my property value to grow every year, and it does, based on the market-based system. And that's what our projections are growing, about 2 to 4% growth every year. So as the gross assessed value continues to grow, great. But if they're creating additional deductions, it's driving that net assessed value down. And that's what that orange line is right there. So creating new deductions pushes that net assessed value down. So what that means is there's less money coming into the pot for the property tax revenue entities.
So in other words, if we were able to actually collect revenue off the green line, we'd be no problem.
We would have been at that blue line if they didn't create these deductions. And so you would have seen that growth in your net assessed value. So then you would have been able to generate the levies in the bottom scenario. 2025, 1.3 million. By 2035, you'd be up over 2.3. You'd be able to potentially, if you saw, 2 to 4% growth on average, 2 to 4% growth helps cover cost of inflation. So you would have been able to keep up. But now, if net assessed values drive down, if your revenue is stagnant or potentially decreases, if you keep your tax rate the same, it's going to have an impact. So we talked about those few scenarios and the rates. Here's one other thing that does not affect assessed value, but it is going to affect your circuit breaker laws. The state of Indiana is getting rid of LIT, local income tax. There's two pieces. One piece, you'll see that I've highlighted, they have something called certified shares. This is something that the counties, not every county does it, your county does not. So that's good news. You don't have any cash being taken away from you. Some districts have $500,000 that the county would give them that is directly being taken away. That's a hit right off the top. But down at the bottom, you'll see it says property tax relief. That's the second piece of LIT. Your county gives property tax relief to your homeowners over $150 million, almost $160 million. So what does that mean? Historic property tax relief for homeowners, creating deductions, but they're taking away the property tax relief credits that they were giving to them prior. Every county's different. Not every county has, one county I saw had like $20,000. Like, this is almost $160 million. This is a lot of property tax relief that's being taken away from your taxpayers. So we'll take a look at that. Okay, we talked rate and we talked levy for debt service. We're going to talk about levy for operations for a second here. So with the assessed value driving down, it's going to create additional circuit breaker loss. And so circuit breaker, as you know, it's operations right now. Circuit breaker is revenue not received by the district created by the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax cap. So once you get to your tax cap, you don't pay anymore. But if your liability should have been, that's where that tax cap is calculated. So if, let's just say my tax cap was $2,000, but my liability was supposed to be $2,200, the school is losing $200 on my property. That's $200, what we're calling a circuit breaker loss. That's called the traditional circuit breaker. But now these are creating additional, and we'll show you, and it shows you here, from 2025, due to that credit, then that business personal property tax exemption, then that PTRC going away from your homeowners. And since the majority of your homeowners are at their cap, it creates additional circuit breaker loss for your district. So from 2025, and this may look a little bit different if we have a little more assessed value growth in 26, but you will see that dip because that LIT is going away, that PTRC is going away in 2028, and so you will see that circuit breaker loss and going down, what is that, about $700,000 from this year to 2028. and circuit breaker loss. So, talking about that circuit breaker loss, we've modeled it out here, so this is just that 10% $300 max credit additional circuit breaker that was created. You'll see in 2026, actually the whole chart, we're modeling a blue and an orange. Blue is operations, debt, orange is debt service. Traditional circuit breaker, majority of it hits your operations fund because the debt service is protected. Someone forgot to sign that in to legislation, so the debt service fund is not protected currently for these newly created circuit breakers. We do feel that they're gonna come back in 2026 and say, hey, we forgot to do that, let's protect it for 2027. So if that happens, as you can see, they're not just gonna say, oh, that circuit breaker's gonna go away. They're gonna save that debt service fund, but it's gonna hit your operations fund. So in 2027, if they protect the debt service fund, you're gonna additionally see potentially an additional 40,000 hit that operations fund in lost revenue. Left side is the rate scenario, and that's really what the levy scenario. We've modeled it out. Levy is just to get the exact same dollars you're getting in 2025. Rate scenario, as it increases, as that amount increases, as the rate goes up, circuit breaker goes up. So that's why why it looks so different. Okay, so if they protect the debt service fund, what does it look like to your operations fund? You'll see it'll be potentially 1.1 million in operations by 2028. So, $800,000 difference in 3 years in the deficit as operational costs increase, as fuel, utilities, health insurance, property casualty insurance. Everybody wants to be paid more. All of those things factored in with less revenue. Something to keep in mind. Okay. So we talked debt service fund, we talked operations. Now we're going to talk about what it looks like for property tax payers. Let's see, this is Whiting Court North Taxing District. So what we did is we pulled a sample homestead. We said, okay, what's the median AV of this homestead? $195,000. So this homeowner, they are at the caps because majority of your homeowners are at the caps. Their net liability is $1,950. So now they're going to be getting that credit in 2026. So they're going to be saving $142 because as their assessed value is going up on their home, it's not the full, $195 because the assessed value is going up. So you'll see the taxpayer liability is going down slightly in 2026, but because the gross assessed value still follows the market-based trend, so their liability is going to continue to grow. And so then you'll see the difference between 27 and 28. There's a little more growth there because that PTRC is going away. So their liability is going to continue to climb. So we like to show this because we wanted to say, okay, are these deductions worth it? Is it creating the historic property tax relief that it's supposed to? I'm not sure if $142 is historic in any way, shape, or form, but the liability is going to continue to grow to the homeowners while your tax revenue is decreasing and your rate's going to have to increase, potentially, depending on your scenario. So that's where it gets a little difficult, is going, okay, my liability went down a little bit, not having huge savings, and you guys are seeing lost revenue due to the changes, due to the additional circuit breakers being created. So those are all the changes. Any questions on those changes and the potential impact to the district before we take a look at cash flow a little bit? I know I'm like my colleague was like, I feel like we are hospice and we can work for hospice, like delivering this not so fun news. So it's kind of grim, but it's a reality, and it's something that has to be paid attention to for the next 6 years for school districts for planning purposes. So no questions on that piece. I'll kind of transition into your cash flows. So we have partnered and we have pulled all the data in for the school districts, some historical revenue and expenditures for 23 and 24. We have actuals in 25. This goes up to May 31st. So for actuals for 2025 so far through the year, you can see you'll have a positive cash balance, but you can see that the expenditures are outpacing the revenues and will continue to do so if nothing is changed. But the Senate Enrolled Act 1 impact is built into this. We do have some assumptions built in based on salary increases, utility cost increases, typical purchases kind of factored in. So based on some realistic assumptions that we've worked with the district, we do see by 2028 the ending cash balance for education and operations together would be roughly negative $2.2 million if those assumptions stay the same. If you factor in rainy day, you're still in the positive, but rainy day is one-time dollars, and by 2029, potentially could be a loss of $1.2 million if those three funds total together. So we just like to show this to give you a picture of what that cash flow looks like. And this is just from until 2029. We do know that this continues out until 2031 when we get a new baseline. Here's kind of a waterfall chart of those projected ending cash balances. Definitely a waterfall chart for sure. Next couple of slides are just summaries. And then this is a kind of a summary of everything on one chart or one slide to show you your certified levies that are projected, then the potential circuit breaker loss, and then if they're charter shares minute, it's based on some IDO numbers, and there may be a little differential by the time 2028 comes around. But then giving you the net levies in debt service and operations. As you see, the circuit breaker loss could potentially grow in operations from 31.4% up to 63%. So on the bar chart, you'll see that growth in the gray. That is the circuit breaker loss projection. And you can see that operations is blue, and you'll see that decrease in revenue from 25 to 2029. So putting it all on one slide, and I think I get this question the most is, what's the most important thing to take off this slide? So when I'm at the grocery store and somebody says, what's happening? You're going to say, due to the deductions, additional circuit breaker loss is happening to the district, and it's driving down our revenue. And so loss of revenue in an already tight budget, 1.8 million down to 1.1 million potentially in 2029, it's a pretty big impact. So circuit breaker loss, they create new deductions, it creates additional circuit breaker. So that's the levy scenario, and the rate scenario is modeled exactly the same. And then I guess I did mention in the bottom right, the potential property tax rate increases depending on the fund, debt service operations. So that is my entire presentation. Again, gross assessed value, additional credits, deductions being created, credits and deductions being created is driving down net assessed value. As net assessed value drives down, your circuit breaker loss is going up, and your tax rate is potentially going up as your revenues may stay the same or trend slower than they would have prior to Senate Enrolled Act.
So what authority does the board have on tax rates? What do they do to impact tax rates, knowing that the assessed valuation is?
So there's a couple things. So they can manage that debt service rate if there's some debt capacity, doing projects to keep the rate steady or to generate the exact same levy. You can work with your bond counsel and your financial advisors on that piece. But you cannot create additional tax revenue for any additional, any new revenue without running a referendum. So you have that capacity to increase your levy, but that's your levy and your rate. You have that, but we're looking at, you're not gonna be able to create an additional 800,000 in 2028. At that point in time, it would have to be an operating referendum to cover that loss. And so I guess I should mention that. So there have been changes to referendum rules, regulation. Referendums can only be ran now on even numbered years, and they can only be ran in November. So if referendum is on the table, we are encouraging all of our clients to start early because there's only so many referendum consultants and financial advisors. We are used to typically seeing 5 to 6 referendums a year, and now we could potentially be seeing, I think we heard the other day, 35 in November of 2026 because we're seeing numbers like this, and if you can only run it in 26 and can't run it again until 28, if your cash flows run out in 27, you can't carry over to 28, you need to run early. Or if you have a referendum that is hitting its 8-year mark in 2031, do you run in 28? Because then if it doesn't, then you can run again in 2030. So there's a lot of mechanical pieces that are gonna be really different and complex to work through because the rules have been changed, but I think we're gonna see historical numbers of referendums being ran due to the decrease in property tax revenue. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. I'm so sorry for the news that I have to deliver. Thank you. Wow, that was good.
I think it's important, for us to say that, we're gonna be, as we move forward, we're gonna be fiscally responsible. Just based on everything we heard, there's some things that have to be thought about, right? As a school district and the board and the superintendent are gonna have to consider. It's not gonna be easy to navigate through, but we are gonna always keep our kids first and what's best for our students first as we move forward. And I don't want to speak on what if right now, or what are we going to do, because obviously we haven't kind of dove into that deep enough to share details, but I promise as a superintendent, we're going to be transparent with everybody as we move forward. And when those things are planned out, we will make sure that we announce them to the community. Thank you.
Move on to D, consent agenda, approval of school city lighting board minutes, regular meeting minutes of July 28, 2025, approval of the claims of the month of August in the amount of $954,850.18. Donations, $150 donation from the city of Whiting to the Whiting High School Volleyball Club, $500 donation from Skillman for the staff barbecue on 8/12/25. $250 donation from Sunrise Restaurant to the Whiting Middle School, Whiting High School PBIS account. Approval to accept the personal report. Motion to approve all consent agenda items as presented.
Motion. I'll second.
Motion by Rena, second by Chris. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? New business. Approval of the 2025 school board compact. Do I have a motion?
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, second by Chris. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think I want to just say, obviously, the presentation that we just got financially, and then we have a quote on here for a new video board for our field, is going to have the citizens kind of like, what's going on? But this is an opportunity as a revenue maker. There's a lot of school districts in the area that are putting these video boards in their fields, and they're getting sponsorships from local businesses. And it's really helping bring in some additional funding to the schools. So, yes, it's an investment, is how we should be looking at it. And I know it's you're probably questioning it, but I really believe that it's going to help us in the long run bring in some extra funds for our students, and it's going to go directly to help our students out. And also, our attorney here is going to be looking over and working with the company as far as the contract goes to make sure that everything is fair for the school city of Whiting. So pending attorney review, we would like to ask the board to vote yes on this agenda item.
Motion. Motion by Tom, second by Rena.
And also, just really quick, Calumet College is also donating a large portion towards the video board, about $90,000 is coming from them. And we can only use that money for a football field upgrade. It's not like they could just give it to us and we can use it for something different. It has to be towards the field. So we are getting $90,000 from them to use for that video board. Thank you, President.
Any other comments, questions?
One more.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Student Conversation Association approval to partner with the Student Conservation Association to bring an environmental educational program to the school city of Whiting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Motion by Patty, second by Chris. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval of school city of Whiting lunch prices for 2025-2026 school year. High school breakfast $1.65, lunch $3. Middle school breakfast $1.60, lunch $2.90. Elementary breakfast $1.55, lunch $2.60. Adults breakfast $2.50, lunch $4.60. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Rena, second by Tom. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval to renew the 5-star pivot evaluation software contract for the 2025-2026 school year at the cost of $2,659.50. Motion? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Patty. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval to let Arnie sponsor our athletic program. Motion. Second. Motion by Tom, second by Rena. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Approval for a fundraiser with the Hammond Optimist Club and the Whiting Athletic Department. Motion? Motion. I'll second. Motion by Rena, second by Chris. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval for the Whiting Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce to use the New York Avenue parking lots and the lawn on 110th Street for Friday, October 3rd, 2025 from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and Saturday, October 4th, 2025 from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. for Wickley Whiting, and the use of the primary hallway for ghost hunting tours on Friday, October 3rd, 2025 and Saturday, October 4th, 2025 from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Rena, second by Chris. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So down to F, audience comments, general matters. Any public oral comments are limited to 3 minutes in length. Audience comments, general matters. Anybody have any comments?
This is geared towards the collective bargaining.
point with regard to collective bargaining is that before we can begin collectively collective bargaining season begins September 15th, ends November 15th. And before you can begin collectively bargaining, you have to have the contract that's on your website and take any input that anybody might have with respect to collective bargaining. So this is the time that you would open up the floor for anybody to make any kind of comment about the collective bargaining agreement that you have currently with teachers. This is what we call kind of the pre-bargaining hearing.
Anybody like to say something? No?
Motion to adjourn the meeting. Second. Motion by Chris, second by Tom. Any